Hey everyone, and welcome. So today we're going to tackle a really big question. What actually makes a teacher great? I mean, it's got to be more than just teaching facts and figures, right? We're diving into a really powerful article that calls them sculptors of the future, which I think is a beautiful way to put it. They're seen as moral and spiritual guides. So let's jump right in.
But before we really get going, I just want to give a huge shout out to the author of the piece that inspired all of this, Juba Thummy. And also, a big thanks to Bidhyati Media for putting these incredible insights out there. Honestly, it's their work that makes this whole conversation possible, and it's a really important one.
Okay, so the article kicks off with this really profound idea that it immediately sets the stage. It says the word teacher isn't just some ordinary word. It's not just a job title. It's a role that's packed with deep meaning, social responsibility, even a spiritual philosophy. So what does that actually mean in practice? Let's break it down. Right, so if a teacher isn't simply an instructor, then what are they? Well, the article brings up this really powerful concept, the guru. And we're not just talking about someone who teaches you math or history here. This is about guiding the entire person. And what I find so fascinating is how the article breaks this down. It's not about just memorizing facts for a test. It's about explaining the deep meanings of life, opening the doors of consciousness, being a guide in the darkness. It's about educating the heart, not just cramming stuff into the mind. It's about building character, values, perspective. I mean, that is a massive responsibility when you think about it. But here's the thing. The article argues that this beautiful ideal is actually in real trouble. It points to a crisis happening right now, where that sacred role of the teacher is kind of fading away, being worn down by outside pressures and, a total shift in what we think is important. And this slide just lays out the problem so clearly. Look at the two sides. The ideal teacher is a seeker of knowledge, on a sacred mission, an independent thinker, a moral guide. But the reality the author sees today, the teacher becomes a party worker. The role is just a profession. An independent thinker becomes a follower of orders, and a moral guide becomes a tool of influence. It's a really stark contrast. And this is where the article makes a really chilling point about what happens when this shift takes place. It starts with this phrase, when a teacher's pen runs under political orders. I mean, just think about that image for a second. A teacher whose job is to open minds, now writing what they're told to write. Education dies. Simple as that. That's the punchline. The moment educators become mouthpieces for someone else's agenda, the whole spirit of education just dies. It stops being about enlightenment and becomes all about propaganda. And that's a scary thought.
Okay, but it's not all bad news. The article doesn't just leave us there, it actually lays out a path forward, a way for teachers to reclaim that true purpose of being a guru. So let's take a look at what that path to revival looks like.
So the author lays out these 5 core values that are absolutely essential. It all starts with impartiality, seeing every single student as equal, no matter their background. Then you've got honesty, being sincere and accountable. Self-discipline, which is huge because you have to be a model of it yourself. Empathy, really understanding what students are going through. And maybe the most important one of all, leading by example. A true teacher doesn't just talk about these things, they live them day in and day out. And this next quote just hits the nail on the head. It perfectly explains why all of this matters so much. It says, a student can get knowledge from a book, but only a teacher can provide vision. Think about that. In an age where you can Google anything, facts are cheap. But vision, wisdom, that spark that helps you see the world in a new way, yeah, that can only come from a real teacher, a real mentor. So what's the big deal? What happens when teachers really step into this role? Well, the impact goes way beyond the 4 walls of the classroom. The article makes a powerful case that it actually shapes the entire fabric of society, and even the destiny of a nation. The author calls this the ripple effect, and it's such a great way to think about it. The values a teacher lives out every day, they don't just stop with the student. They ripple outwards. Honest teachers create a more truthful society. Impartial teachers help build a more just one. Patriotic teachers help build a strong nation. It just goes to show you every single word, every action in that classroom has these huge long-term consequences. Which brings us to this final powerful statement. It totally reframes how we should think about a teacher's job. In the teacher's hand is not just a pen, but the future of the nation. Wow. So they aren't just employees punching a clock. They are literally the guardians, the architects of a country's future. And they hold that incredible responsibility in their hands every single day.
So all of this really boils down to one final crucial question that the article leaves us to think about. And that question is this: do we see teachers as just professionals doing a job, or do we see them as what this article suggests they are, the sculptors of the future? Because really, how we answer that question is going to determine the kind of world our kids grow up in.